is, of course, something that all of us are so deeply proud of, would never have happened without you. And so thank you immensely, my friend, for your loyalty to this university.
Joe Biden's going to speak. We'll see how that goes. I'll keep you guys
as well.
We'll hang out. Let me know if you have any questions. Be sure to subscribe if you're new.
You mention an event like this, never remember that you've mentioned them. The people that you forget, never forget that you've left them out as well. So it's a very dangerous process to go through. But I know gathered here with us today, I've met, in fact, saw them coming through the door, are my former colleagues and members of our Connecticut delegation in Congress. And I see Dick Blumenthal over on the side. I saw Chris Murphy coming in. I saw Johanna Hayes, John Larson, of course, you've heard from Rosa, Jim Himes as well. And right in the congressional district of Joe Courtney. I think I got them all. If I left someone out, tell me.
If Joe Biden says not a joke, we're going to scream. That's just how this game goes.
Here in this room, there have been some 200 or 300 people that I call part of my family in a way over the last, or during the 36 years that I served in public office representing the state, first as a congressman and then as a senator, as Rosa mentioned. And I've been blessed by having remarkable people who are part of those efforts over all those long years. They call themselves the Dodd Squad, coming along. A creative name, I might add. I don't know where they got that title from. But I'm grateful to them so much for everything they did to make our work successful. And there are no words I can ever use to thank the people of this state for giving both my father and I the honor to represent Connecticut in the halls of Congress. Together it was 52 years, his service and mine, to represent the state in that building. And so I'm very grateful to my staff. And
how you guys doing? I'm live on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch,
I remember
Rumble.
I hired a guy out of a friendly ice cream shop almost more than 40 years ago.
Ice cream? You're talking about Joe Biden?
The staff. And if just a couple of days ago, after a long illness, Eddie Mann, my chief of staff of the Senate office, passed away. And so I want Eddie to know, even though he's not here today, how much he's responsible for everything else that happened over the years to make us successful on behalf of the people of this state. So to my staff, I thank all of them as well, the Dodge Squad. The Dan Wiener, I should have mentioned at the top. Glenn Matoma, who's been the director of the Dodd Impact Program. Glenn, thank you.
The Dodge Squad.
Everything you've done as well. And Kathy. And Kathy Leibel at the director of HRI, the Human Rights Institute. Again, it's a great team you put together making this happen. Richard Wilson, who is the Gladstone, holds the Gladstein chair, is also tremendously important. And Richard, thank you for all that you do as well in this. And lastly, events like this don't happen miraculously. You have people who dedicate themselves working with the university, the governor's office, the board of trustees. But I want Lee Reynolds, who's done a tremendous job for over a year pulling this all together. And Erin Bingle. Erin Bingle as well, working with us. Erin and I have only known her a short time, but she is phenomenal, the job she's done as well. So Erin, thank you for everything you've done to pull this all together for us. Well, let me just, in my sort of brief remarks here, because this is a great honor.
Check my volume.
They ask you how you are, you should just say that you're fine. Here in our state. 75 years ago, on October 15th, 1946.
Sorry, checking my volumes. I don't want them to be loud.
21 defendants at the Nuremberg trial were waiting for yourselves 75 years ago today.
Okay.
On the eve of receiving the sentences that the four allied nations, the United States, Great Britain, France, and the Soviet Union, had concluded only 2 weeks earlier on October 1st. Winston Churchill had argued for summary executions of all the defendants at Nuremberg. Joseph Stalin suggested a show trial for a day or two or a week or two, and then execute all of the defendants at Nuremberg. 10 of the defendants on October 16th, 1946, senior Nazi leaders, would be executed the next day on October 16th. 8 of the defendants were given a wide range of prison sentences, and 3 of the defendants were completely acquitted on that day. Who would have ever imagined, if you will, that a trial conducted by 4 nations with highly diverse judicial systems could adhere to the principles of the rule of law as they prosecuted some of the worst, most vile, horrific criminals in recorded history? 1 year earlier, in November of 1945, the chief prosecutor for the United States Supreme Court Justice Robert Jackson eloquently foretold why the trials at Nuremberg were so critical. His words, uttered 3/4 of a century ago, predicted the conduct of the trial and, importantly, the relevancy of Nuremberg in our 21st century world. My father revered Justice Jackson, almost a father and son sort of relationship, and he often quoted a sentence from Justice Jackson's opening remarks at the trial. Let me share them with you. That 4 great nations, he said, flushed with victory and stung with injury, stay the hand of vengeance by voluntarily submitting their captive enemies to the judgment of the rule of law is one of the most significant tributes to power of the paid treaties. One sentence which captured the essence of the rule of law. This wasn't about colonies and acquiring property. It was about restoring the rule of law. It had been so violent. Everything the Nazis did during their reign was in their minds justified, ironically, because of the Nuremberg laws that gave them permission in their minds to do what they did.
Apologize.
Prior to his death in April of 1945, Franklin Roosevelt, as many of you know, appointed Justice Jackson.
That's the noise you'll hear if he says not a joke.
And President Truman, shortly thereafter, of course, confirmed that choice. What FDR, Harry Truman, and Justice Jackson understood, and what my father, as a 38-year-old Justice Department prosecutor, would come to understand, and what President Joe Biden has believed and championed for his entire public life, is the peace and security we all seek at home and abroad is rooted in the triumph of democratic values and the rule of law. The confirmation of my father's conviction that the Nuremberg trials were of meaningful importance was expressed in a letter to my mother in the early summer of 1946, almost a year later after the trials began. The letter captures why Nuremberg resonates even today, in my view, with all who value the rule of law. And further, that letter explains the huge impact that Nuremberg had on my father and his deep commitment to human rights and the rule of law throughout his public life. Let me quote from that letter to my mother in June of 1946. Someday, he wrote, the Nuremberg trials will be recognized as a great landmark in the struggle of mankind for peace. I will never do anything as worthwhile again. Nothing will ever really be as important. Someday the children, I hope, will point to it and be proud and inspired by it. Perhaps they will be at the bar themselves, and perhaps they will invoke the precedents and call upon the law that we make here at Nuremberg. Today we gather on the campus of a great American university and at the entrance to its Center for Human Rights. May I say with thanks and confidence to those of you gathered here today who made this day possible, including, of course, my friend, the President of the United States. In response to my father's hope that he uttered 75 years ago, here at this center, at this university, in this our country, we will invoke the precedents and call upon the law that was made in Nuremberg 75 years ago. I am very grateful to my dear, dear friend, our president, for coming to Connecticut, for coming to our flagship university, and for coming to the Dodd Center for Human Rights. My friendship with Joe Biden goes back years as Senate colleagues, and it strongly continues to this day. A friendship that is both personally and substantively grounded. When my sister passed away some years ago in Rhode Island, who came to Rhode Island and walked unannounced into that funeral home? It was then the Vice President of the United States, Joe Biden. When my older brother was diagnosed with cancer, who did I call first for advice and counsel on what to do? My friend, Joe Biden. And we were both campaigning for the presidential nomination, which you've all certainly forgotten, in 2007. Participating in those endless debates. Which candidate flew to and from the debate with me? My friend Joe Biden.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier.
We did so because of our deep friendship for each other, but we were also both broke, I might add, as well. In today's highly polarized political world, such joint ventures, regrettably, would be unlikely. So I'm grateful to my friend for being with us today. But there are strong substantive reasons as well for our friendship. In all our years together, I know of no other Senate colleague with whom I served who cared more or fought harder for the fundamental human rights of people at home and around the globe. Before his public life, President Biden was personally engaged with the civil rights movement in Wilmington, Delaware. He authored the Violence Against Women Act, and he was a leading voice against apartheid in South Africa.
Golly.
And his historic confrontation with the Balkans during the Balkans conflict, with the leading Serbian human rights abuser, Slobodan Milosevic, was yet another example of his fearless advocacy of human rights. The President was a consistent, strong voice on human rights conditions in Northern Ireland as well, and I never had a more loyal colleague in my efforts to stem the tide of human rights abuses in Central America. As Senator, as Vice President, and today as our President, Joe Biden is not merely an advocate of human rights and the rule of law. He is consistently and actively engaged as an outspoken world leader in this cause. Today, hate crimes and hate speech, as we all know, are on the rise. Supremacist groups are proliferating at home and around the globe as well. And the number of autocratic regimes seems to grow on a regular basis. Mr. President, your presence here today on this our university campus, at this Center for Human Rights, is not merely a gesture of friendship, as much as I appreciate our friendship. It is also a reflection of who you are, of what you believe, and what you want for our country.
An ice cream man.
Your courageous decisions, your clear priorities, in my view, and your deep, long-held convictions to build America back better after these hard and difficult years.
Come on.
Is exactly
Come on.
the leadership that our country so desperately needs. My friends gathered here today on this campus, would you please join me in welcoming and thanking our President of the United States, Joseph R. Biden.
Thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
My name is Joe Biden. I am Jill Biden's husband.
Oh my God, Snore, you do that joke every time.
Delighted to be here. Thank you. Thank you. It is truly, it's not hyperbole to suggest. It's a great honor to be here.
I thought he was going to say, not a joke.
And at this great public university, celebrating the life and legacy of not one, but two proud sons of Connecticut, Senator Thomas Dodd and my good friend, and we truly are.
I hear let's go
close friends.
Fuck F. Joe Biden.
Chris Dodd. Chris and I have known each other for a long time. But if you'll excuse the point of personal privilege, as we used to say in the Senate, I saw up close how he fought for human rights and human dignity in the Senate.
I hear a crowd in the background. I don't know what they're saying.
Madam Ambassador, Ambassador Kennedy, you know what my measure is? People who tell me they care about people and then disrespect a waitress or a waiter. People who tell me they care about how, in fact, people are entitled to be treated with dignity and walk by someone at a shoe shine stand and suddenly say hello.
Shoe shine stand. Say that 10
People
times fast. Shoe
who
shine
do
stand.
not
Shoe shine stand.
Do the just simply decent things
Shoe shine stand.
for ordinary people. That's the real measure. I've never seen Chris, figuratively or speaking, walk by anybody.
I can hear
never
people
seen him
screaming
nor
in the background.
His wife, nor his two brilliant, beautiful daughters. I remember the passion and eloquence that you brought to the floor, Chris, whether you were fighting for American families or serving as the Senate leading voice on engagement with Latin America and the Caribbean. And your brother, the ambassador, did a pretty damn good job as well. I think that the work this center is doing to bring human rights to the forefront of public understanding is making a real and immediate impact for
There are people
all young
screaming in the
people
background. I
today.
can hear them.
Well, you know, I think it's going to rate high among your family's many great and lasting contributions to the country, Chris. And I know this is truly a family commitment for the Dodds. So thank you for inviting me to be part of this. I think I really mean it. It's an honor to be able to be here. Of course, I
Come
hope,
on,
Chris,
man.
I remember where, as he pointed out, we were both running for president back in 2007 with almost no cash in either of our campaigns. You let me hop a ride with you in a twin-engine prop plane, true story, from
Not a joke.
a Senate vote in D.C. to a Democratic debate in New Hampshire. We were on our way to the debate one other time, but the whole way up, we just laughed and told stories before we were debating one another. And then the next day, to get back to the Senate to vote, we had to flag down remember this? Flag down a young senator named Barack Obama to get them to even open the airport. God's truth. Remember that, Chris? Here, he'd just been there 2 years. He was on my Foreign Relations Committee. I was chairman. I said, can you get the airport open for us? I kid Barack. I couldn't understand why he so soundly defeated me in that primary. And then I realized when he'd be introduced by the voice of God. I get introduced by Johnny Scanafrana. So it took a while for me to figure all this out. Luckily, Chris, I got to travel in a much nicer plane these days. And it's yours to travel in anytime you would like. I want to thank a few
Did you
more
just give up the
proud
Air Force One?
who've been spending time with me today. Governor Lamont, you're one of the finest governors in the country. I'm not being solicitous. That's a fact.
Say it's not a joke. Say it. You know you want to, Joe.
Exceeded only by your wife. And Senator Blumenthal, I mentioned earlier today, I apologize for repeating this, but my son, Beau Biden, who's the one that should be standing here talking to you, my son, Beau Biden, was the Attorney General of the state of Delaware. And one of the people he went to and sought advice from, for real, was then Attorney General Blumenthal.
God, you want to say not a joke.
And my son was a great admirer, and I think the senator knows that. And Senator Murphy, if I have to summon in the foxhole with me, I want Murph with me, man. No, I'm serious. This guy knows as much about foreign policy as anybody does, and his failure to remain silent has meant a great deal to me because he's spoken up on so much. And Representative Courtney, I thank you. Thank you for your help and your support. And Rosa DeLauro. Rosa, I don't owe as much as Chris does to Rosa, but I owe a hell of a lot to her. My son was married, and he was in the second year of law school, and he transferred to Yale Law School. And Rosa heard that I was coming up with him, and the apartment he rented was less than ideal. And the whole thing had to be painted. My brother Jimmy fixes everything. My brother Jimmy's with us, and we went down and bought about 28 gallons of paint. I don't know, but for real, it was hot as hell as well. And I'm up on a 8-foot ladder painting the crown molding and sweating like the proverbial you know what. And here at the door, I said, "Come in." And the then is it alderman or councilman at the time? Alderman DeLauro walked in, her mom, and she said, "Where's Biden?" I said, "I'm here." She said, "No, stop fooling with me, son. Where's Biden?"
He just did this joke 5 seconds ago.
And she came over. She said, "I just want to come over and introduce myself and tell you."
Oh my God! He literally did the same story a minute ago.
I thought, "Holy God, what did I do?"
2 hours ago in his last speech.
Nothing to worry about.
Same comment,
Talk
same
about
story.
Constituent service. Rosa, you come by it.
Yeah, I hate politicians. They're so fake.
And Rosa, we've all, and I'm not being solicitous again,
It's
using that
Rosa.
word twice now. We've all learned a great deal from you. I want to thank you for your long-standing dedication to relating to the well-being of children and families.
If I'm bored, I know everyone's bored in the audience.
And expanding the child tax credit. which is a gigantic middle-class tax cut for working families, that finally got passed in the American Rescue Plan, which we were able to get done immediately upon being elected. And Rosa will not tell you, but she's the first person I called to ask for her help as to how I should do this. And
really?
Put money in the pockets of families all across
Their
this
mic
country,
is all messed up.
even
It's
as we
all.
speak. It's how we're going to cut child poverty in this country. And we've already cut it nearly in half. And
Their
none
mic
of it
is
should
all
be
messed up.
decided to American families when we think about our mission to defend human rights and dignity at home and around the world. 26 years ago today, another United States senator, United States
What are you going to do?
who I just spoke to, Chris, literally.
Sorry, it's not me. It's their mic.
Ago, Bill Clinton, he sends his best, by the way, visited this university to dedicate the Thomas J. Dodd Research Center, a library and archives of papers that amount to an incredible first-person, first draft of history. And let me say,
does he yell
we're
to
all
wake
thinking
himself
about
up?
President Clinton today as sending him his good wishes to speedy recovery. He's always been a comeback kid. He's getting out of the hospital. Everything's going well. But he wanted to send his best. As a young lawyer, Tom Dodd had already built a record of fighting hatred by prosecuting the KKK in the South. But when in 1945 he left behind his beloved Grace and his 5 young children, a young Christopher just 14 months old at the time, to travel to the bombed-out cities of Europe to document the shocking atrocities still fresh in their horror.
Screaming.
To question and cross-examine some of history's most notorious villains. That's not hyperbole. Some of history's most notorious villains. And to expose beyond question the depravity and the crimes against humanity that the Nazi regime committed.
Excuse me?
Tom Dodd.
God, I got to turn his mic
his
down.
intellect and his moral passion and his resolute sense of right and wrong to making the Nuremberg
Relax,
trial
Mussolini.
a testament to justice. And that's what it was, a testament
So
to justice.
loud.
Nothing like it ever happened before. And all the while, he was writing letters to his Grace, lamenting their separation.
You guys are lucky I'm
But
controlling the
recognizing
volume for him, for you.
The momentous weight of history
Blowing my ears
rested
out.
on his shoulders. And Chris, I came up with the same sentence from your book. Someday, he wrote, will be recognized as a great landmark in the struggle of mankind for peace. Never before has such a record been written, and men will read it for 1,000 years in amazement and wonder how it ever happened. When President Clinton spoke at this first dedication, he ended on a poignant reminder. He said, and I quote, "The road to tyranny, we must never forget, begins with the destruction of truth." The road to tyranny begins with the destruction of truth. In my view, that was the lesson at the heart of the Nuremberg trials. Finding truth, documenting it, so it could never be denied. In court, Tom Dodd built a case fact by fact, using the Nazis' own meticulous records of crimes and shocking human evidence to pin down Nazi leaders who tried to deny their complicity and feign ignorance. And even more important, it denied the entire German policy the ability to feign ignorance. To deal with the past, you must face the truth.
Gosh, relax.
Whether it's Dachau, Buchenwald, Auschwitz, or other camps, millions of Jews rounded up, along with members of other minority groups, thrown into camps, abused, used as forced labor, medical experimentation. 6 million Jews murdered, including so many who met their ultimate fate in the gas chamber. He made sure no one could deny their own eyes in what they saw. He preserved the truth, ugly and as traumatic as it was for all of history, so that the horrors of the Holocaust could never be diminished or denied. And the evil that we still have to guard against to this day has to be watched. Chris, as you heard me say many times before, because you got to meet my dad. My dad was a well-read, high school educated fellow whose greatest regret was he never went to college.
He already said that.
But he cared deeply
Marlon Brando.
about human dignity. Our dinner table.
He's literally saying the same thing you just said to the Teachers Association or whatever he did.
He's a righteous Christian. And growing up, my dad would come home for dinner before we went back to
Marlon Brando.
the business he managed. And the dinner table was a place we sat down to have conversation and incidentally eat. I'm serious.
I'm serious.
My dad used to
Not
talk
a joke?
about,
God, he won't say it.
as a student of the Holocaust, what a
Say not a
tragedy
joke.
it was that we didn't bomb the railroad tracks toward the end of the war. How wrong it was that we turned away the St. Louis, a ship full of Jewish refugees from Europe. He believed passionately the only way we could make real the promise of never again was to keep reminding ourselves of what had happened.
What had happened was,
And how so many people, otherwise thought themselves decent people, rationalized that it really wasn't happening. We didn't know what was going on. Because they weren't turning on the gas valve, they had no responsibility. That's why, if you'll again excuse the point of personal privilege, when each of my children, and now my grandchildren, turn the age of 15, the first thing I've done
is give him a job.
is put them on an aircraft and fly to Dachau, one at a time, at
Really?
age 15. Work sets you free as you go through the entrance. But that's not what I wanted them to see.
Because you believe
to
that?
see the lovely homes that were right up against the fence line with their beautiful roofs.
Okay.
People living in there rationalized that it's not me.
Beautiful roofs.
I'm not doing this.
Gorgeous roofs.
And I don't know really what's going on in there.
God.
I wanted them to see the ability of the human mind to rationalize cannot be underestimated. I would say parenthetically, the reason why Germany has been able to turn it around unlike other countries is because they faced it head on, acknowledged. So let me say it again.
Say it again.
Nuremberg was unlike anything that ever came before. It was not about vengeance. It was about accountability. For only acknowledging the truth can we prevent the repetition of atrocities, which are happening now in other parts of the world.
He's so loud on my
Elevated
headphones.
our conception, as Chris said, of the rule of law. It set a marker for the future of justice, uplifted the importance of human rights in international affairs. We see it
No, we don't.
in the Nuremberg tribunals, the blueprint we see in those tribunals, the blueprint for future United Nations tribunals that would help deliver justice after atrocities committed in Rwanda, in the former Yugoslavia. We see it in the values championed at Nuremberg, in the antecedents of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and the foundation of a rules-based international order, built out of the wreckage of 2 wars, world wars, not just to prevent us from destroying ourselves, but to actively build a better future. We see in the passion of a young prosecutor a commitment to prioritizing the human impacts of policies.
Human.
The commitment carried through in his son's career, public service, by all the students of this institute who've been inspired by the example. We need you.
And I need you.
And as we look around the world today, we see human rights and democratic principles increasingly under assault.
Like in China?
We feel the same charge of history upon our own shoulders to act.
Just kidding.
We have fewer democracies in the world today than we did 15 years ago.
Oh, I love when he whispers.
Fewer. Not more. Fewer.
Wow, Mindfuel? What was that?
Cannot be sustained.
Fewer.
That's why from day one of my administration, I've taken concrete steps to put human rights back at the center of our foreign policy and reassert our moral leadership on the global stage. To lead, as Chris has so often heard me say, with the power of our example, not the example of our power.
Whoa.
Chris and I served in the Foreign Relations Committee. We excoriated the abuses elsewhere in the world and called for action overseas. But human rights, in some ways, stood apart from the domestic struggle of civil rights and civil liberties and equal justice here at home. Today, we know that our efforts to defend human rights around the world are stronger because we recognize our
like in
own
Afghanistan
challenges. You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier. Leading by example means taking action at home to renew and defend our own democracy.
From those white supremacists that are everywhere.
And promote justice. To defend the sacred right to vote in free, fair,
like showing your ID to vote.
Leading by example means not pretending that our history has been perfect, but demonstrating how strong nations speak honestly about the past and uphold the truth and strive to improve. We make the best case for gender equality, racial justice and equity, religious freedom, the rights of the LGBTQ plus peoples.
I thought he would mess that one
around
up.
the world by practicing what we preach.
Yes.
First 10 minutes out of his office, I ended the Muslim ban.
Muslim ban?
Advancing racial equity through the federal government.
What Muslim ban did we have?
Overturning the ban on transgender individuals serving openly in the United States military. Establishing the White House Gender Policy Council. Demonstrating that our commitment to human rights begins at home, is among the most powerful and persuasive tools.
I think this is the latest Joe Biden spoke.
And as we defend human rights beyond our shores, we're more effective when we work together, allies and partners in our shared values. America as a nation is unique in all
Whisper. Whisper. Do
not
it.
because
Come on,
we're
man.
inherently better.
No, we
It's
are.
the basis upon which we're organized. Virtually every other nation is organized based on ethnicity,
¿Qué pasó?
religion, geography, color. We're unique in all the world. We're based on one guiding principle.
What's that?
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights,
He got it.
including
He
life,
passed the test.
liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
He did it. I
We
thought he
have
would mess that
never
up.
lived up
You
to
know the thing.
We've never, until very recently, walked away from it. The arc has always bent closer and closer to justice and inclusion. The moment we stop, the moment we rest, is the moment that our influence diminishes. So we're
so intense.
engaging multilaterally and rallying the world to advance universal human rights and fundamental freedoms, to prove that democracies can still deliver in an age of fast-moving, cross-cutting challenges. We have rejoined the UN Human Rights Council, which we walked away from. The United States of America didn't want to be part. I mean, just yesterday, we won an election to a new 3-year term that begins in January in that committee. We had to fight to get back on it because the world wondered, do we mean it still?
Yeah, whisper.
United States of America, do we mean it?
Come on, man.
In December, the United States will host a virtual summit, a summit of democracies, to bring together world leaders to make concrete commitments to defend democratic values and push back against advancing authoritarianism. Not war, but important words. We can't return to a world where might is right and strong nations abuse weak or oppress individual rights with impunity. Nuremberg forced us to look closely at the evil of humankind and what we're capable of perpetrating. To see mass atrocities, crimes against humanity.
Sorry, Joe Biden's voice keeps going like this.
They don't happen by accident. The result of choices.
See? It's getting louder.
Choices made by individual human beings and world leaders.
Trying to keep it even killed for you peeps.
When we look around the world today, we
that's what I
cannot
do
say
for
that
you.
The specter of atrocity is behind us.
Atrocities.
We see today the patterns, the choices playing out around the world, even as we speak. The oppression and use of forced labor
China.
of the Uyghurs in Xinjiang. Treatment of the Rohingya by the military junta in Burma.
Rare Biden
Rampant
W for
abuses,
me.
including the use of starvation and sexual violence to terrorize civilian populations in northern Ethiopia. Whenever we hear that kind of poisonous hatred, where we see our fellow human beings being dehumanized, doesn't mean we go to war, but we must speak out.
Wait, what?
Silence, as my dad would remind me, silence is complicity.
Is violence. Oh.
Silence is complicity. That's what Nuremberg said. Your silence is complicity.
Jeez.
I've raised these issues
so
personally
loud.
with leaders around the world, our friends and adversaries alike. And I made it clear that no U.S. president should stand by when human rights are under attack and maintain their legitimacy.
We should speak out, not go to war.
Those who we are, that's who we are as Americans.
Those who we are, that's who we are.
Part of our DNA. We've fought, we've marched, we've sacrificed to ensure the rights are not reserved to just the wealthy or the powerful. They're God-given inheritance of every person on this planet by virtue of our shared humanity.
Come on, man.
As I said to a Supreme Court justice who I disagreed with in a hearing,
What'd you say?
we have a different form. You think I have my rights because the Constitution granted to me. I possess my rights because I was born. And I gave up some of my rights in a Constitution.
Oh.
That's the radical idea at the core of the founding of our nation. As I said, that all men and women are created equal. We really are endowed by a Creator with certain inalienable rights. And those rights don't flow from the power of the government. These rights exist for every individual, period. Period.
.com.
It's the job of government to protect them, to uphold them equally for all people.
Equally.
We've never, as I said, fully lived up to that animating American ideal, but we've never turned our backs on it. In all the years since our founding, that idea has been our nation's steady North Star. drawing us back on course. The constant struggle to live up to our highest democratic principles, to self-correct, has made us a beacon of hope for the rest of the world.
He's wrapping
It's
up.
also
I can
made
feel
us
it.
Strong, resilient, innovative, dynamic. As I said, I'll repeat, I apologize. America is the only nation founded on an idea, the single most powerful idea in human history.
Which is?
It sparked our revolution. It helped ignite the wave of change around the world that successive generations have built on, expanding our understanding and extending protections to ever wider circle. We must never forget just how fragile the principle of universal human rights still is, how easily bruised, often sacrificed in human battles for power and personal enrichment. In an age of increasing misinformation and disinformation,
Ugh, gross.
we must not grow complacent.
I hate those
in our
words.
defense of the democratic values that have been the firm foundation for an era of peace and prosperity, unprecedented in human history. Attacks on truth are still the harbinger of tyranny. Nothing about our democracy is assured, as I'm sure you're all becoming to realize lately. Nothing about our freedom is guaranteed. We have to work for it. In those letters from Tom Dodd to his dear wife Grace, reflecting his service at Nuremberg, he wrote, "Sometimes a man knows his duty so clearly, so surely, he cannot hesitate, and he dare not refuse it." Tom Dodd lived a life with a clarity of purpose. He brought it to his service as a U.S. Senator, leading the floor fights with the Kennedys on civil rights legislation in the 60s, advocating for gun safety in a state that was a major gun manufacturer, legislation that was ahead of its time, fighting always for human rights and democracy against the forces of oppression and injustice. He passed that passion on to his children.
I keep watching my viewer count just gradually get worse.
Chris
You guys are just as bored as I am,
carried forward
apparently.
his father's mantle in the United States Senate. He used it to fight for all American children and families, passing the first Child Care Act we've seen in this country since World War II, passing the Family and Medical Leave Act. Chris rallied against policies that militarized our relationships in Latin America and argued, instead recognize and invest in the people in our hemisphere. He spoke out when he saw the legacy of justice that his father had fought for in Nuremberg being wrapped in the excesses of a war on terror. And he helped to create this center, growing it over the years from an archival repository for the truth into a leading center for the study and promotion of human rights at home and abroad, into a widely respected
Jones sounds like he's losing his mind. Yeah. Actually, this speech was better than he did 2 hours ago. 2 hours ago, I thought he was about to take a nap. Maybe they interrupted his nap.
So as we rededicate the Dodd
But yeah, he's going down.
Of both father and son, let's also dedicate it to the future of generations, to the students here in the audience today who discover and defend human rights is the passion and purpose of our life. So let us be dedicated to expanding our shared understanding that we can never fully realize the freedom we wish for ourselves without also helping ensure that liberty and justice for everyone. And let's dedicate to the unending fight to bring our own nation, our own world, closer to a future in which every human being is free to pursue the highest dreams and unleash their full potential. And for you students that are here,
A little corny.
undergraduates at this great institution, there's no reason why you will not be doing what I'm doing as President of the United States, standing here, speaking to audiences from now. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I was taught, came from very modest means, no Horatio Alger story, but very modest means, that you can be anything you set your mind to if you work at it. So many of you in this audience, especially in the second tier there, are the people that my grandchildren are going to be looking to.
Beautiful.
There's not a single reason why. Not a single reason why we can't do this. Not a single reason.
Say it one more time.
As I've told every world leader that I've gotten to know, and I've met many, many of them.
Oh, he's closing his book, people.
It's never been a good bet to bet against the American people. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you.
Okay, there goes Joe Biden. Good Lord, that speech, honestly, that speech was better than the last one 2 hours ago, but still, it was crazy. He would scream, and then he would talk very softly, and then scream, and it was very Mussolini vibes. Or Dwight from The Office. We must not acquiesce. We will not go silent in the night. That's all I could think about was Dwight. Okay, we did it. We passed the test. We watched all Joe Biden has to offer today because there was a few days this week he did absolutely nothing. I'm going to have some more stuff coming out later, maybe go live. I appreciate every single one of you. I love you. I seriously do. When other people say that, they're lying. Not me. All right, I'll catch you on the next episode of The Derek O'Shea Show. Welcome to The Derek O'Shea Show, where we discuss culture, news, politics, and more. Sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy the show. Be sure to tell your friends and family about the revolution.